Hello and welcome to Mobile GOP Talk. My name is Donald, and as usual, I want to remind you guys to do your civic duty, get out and vote, not just in presidential elections, but in local elections as well. It's your civic duty, of course. Voting in local elections have more of a daily effect on your lives. Vote in state and local elections as often as possible. Presidential elections obviously are important. It's coming up on campaign season. So, actually it is campaign season, but we're coming up close to November elections, and these are pretty important as well. So, without further delay, I want to go ahead and get started on today's episode. The first story, or the first thing I want to discuss with you guys is my time in the Army. When I was in the Army, I served with several immigrants, and I'm sure plenty of you guys that may or may not be listening, I don't know who all listens to my podcast here, you guys served with immigrants as well in the military. What I wanted to touch on is that these guys came from other countries, legally came across our border and volunteered to serve in our armed forces to gain citizenship to this country. They basically volunteered knowing that it was possible they could lose their lives just to gain citizenship into our country. Now, I remember one guy was from Lebanon. I think he was an interpreter, and another guy, young man, his name was Uda. I can't really remember where he was from. His name was actually spelled like Utah, U-T-H-A. It is really interesting. But the guy that sticks with me the most, he and I had a fairly close relationship. And one of the things, if you haven't served, you don't really know that well, is that you build a real strong rapport with these people, with what we call your brothers in arms. You've got to trust these guys. Now, this guy that I'm talking about, his name was Specialist Racinos. He and his wife came from Nicaragua, and from what I understood, his English was very broken. It was hard to understand some of the things that he said because he was still learning to speak English. Maybe I should have tried harder to speak a little bit of his language to really get the language barrier. Maybe that was part of my problem. But what I understood from him and his wife was that Nicaragua was a pretty dangerous place to live, and it was hard financially for him and his wife to survive. So they immigrated to the United States. And this young man volunteered in our armed forces to gain citizenship. And they don't gain citizenship right away just because they volunteered in our armed forces. They've got to serve time, and they've got to pass tests, citizenship tests, and all that. In my mind's eye, that right there alone, immigrants coming to America to build a better life for themselves, is what the American dream is made of. Now, if you think about this, your ancestors, some of your ancestors came from Ireland. Some of your ancestors came from India. I mean, I know I think about Vivek Ramaswamy, for instance. Both of his parents came from India and built a better life for their family. Legally, they came here. Legally. J.D. Vance's wife, his wife's parents came here legally. built a better life for their family. That's what the American dream is. It's part of it anyways. So let me just keep on moving forward. Now, that was just my time in the military. After I left the military, I've worked construction throughout my life. I was a pipe fitter. I've worked in several power plants and chemical plants, Hoosier Electric, Plant Daniels, the Berry Steam Plant, Olin, UOP. I've been all over working different chemical plants. And one thing they all have in common, you work with immigrants, Hispanic, Latino, just all kinds of different immigrants from all over the world. And one thing they've all have in common is the fact that they came here looking to better their lives, looking to make a better paycheck, looking to live a better quality of life. I mean, I've heard stories about, some of these other third world countries that these people are coming from, trying to escape persecution, trying to make more than a couple of cents an hour. Is this not what the American dream is supposed to be? Now, I wholeheartedly support legal immigration. But I also believe that Joe and Kamala have completely failed us at securing our sovereign border. If you've been paying attention to the RNC or anything former President Donald Trump has been saying, he has pledged that on day one, he would close our border and start deporting people that are here in this country illegally on the day he takes office. Excuse me for a second. Under the Biden administration, the border has been wide open the entire time he has been in office. In his first 100 days, he rolled back roughly 97 of Donald Trump's executive orders on the border. The border being wide open leaves us vulnerable to terrorist attack at any time. And even worse, progressive liberal policies have turned every single city and every small town into a border town. Think about this. I mean, how many cities that were not on the border has had an immigrant rape or kill? An illegal immigrant, mind you, an illegal immigrant has raped and killed a young woman or a child. Look in New York at the immigrants, illegal immigrants who have attacked and killed police officers and got away with it. One of the females that pops in my head right off the top is Laken Riley. And she's not the only one. Right here in Mobile, we've had an immigrant kill somebody in Sims. And he's not the only one. There are other illegals right here in our own backyard. Honestly, I think it's time to completely secure our border and deport all of those who are here illegally. If you cross the border illegally, that is already a criminal offense. You are a criminal. If you come across the border legally, you have came here legally. You are not a criminal. You've done things right. You have shown that you want to come here as a civilian and enjoy the freedoms that we have to offer. You want to be a free citizen of the United States and enjoy all the freedoms that America has to offer you. And we will welcome you with open arms. The Republicans will. I don't know about the Democrats. But if you come across that border legally, we Republicans will welcome you with open arms. And that's all I've got to say about that subject. We're going to move on to the RNC. Now, I know this is a little late. The RNC wrapped up Thursday with a speech from Donald Trump. Now, I don't know who all watched the RNC. I watch a lot of news. I watch a lot of politics. The RNC wrapped up Thursday with a speech from Donald Trump. Now, if you didn't watch any of the RNC, there was a clear message from beginning to the end of the RNC. And that message was clearly unity. Not just unification of the Republican Party, but unification of the entire country. Let's see here. Donald Trump said in his speech, "I don't just want to be president of half of America. I want to be president of all of America." He also said, in an age where politics too often divide us, now is the time to remember that we are all fellow citizens. Now, this is something that you generally don't hear out of Donald Trump's mouth. You know, generally Donald Trump is pretty rash and pretty, fairly aggressive speaking. That's what we've come to know of Donald Trump. You know, he's aggressive when he speaks. He speaks his mind very clearly. But this right here was not your typical speech from Donald Trump. This came after his attempted shooting. Donald Trump has actually shown a little bit more religious side to him since his attempted assassination, and I like this little bit softer side of Donald Trump. It's showing a little something different. I like it. Like I said in the past, when Donald Trump first ran, I was slightly critical of him. Within his first couple of months in office, he showed me that he was going to be a good president. And after he left office, he, in my opinion, was the best president since Ronald Reagan. Not going to argue that. And we need Donald Trump back in office. So I'm going to keep on talking here about what went on. Let's see. Among some of the other speakers to show up, the head of the Teamsters showed up, which blew my mind because since the dawn of the RNC, the Teamsters have never, ever been a part of the Republicans. Generally, you expect to see the Teamsters with the DNC. So this blew my mind. First time ever, head of Teamsters showed up at the RNC and gave a speech. Also, longtime friend of Donald Trump, Dana White, showed up to bring Donald Trump out. Dana White gave a little speech about how much Donald Trump meant to him and what a great guy Donald Trump is and what a great friend he is. So Donald Trump gave a speech, Dana White gave a speech, introduced Donald Trump, brought Donald Trump out on stage, and that was it for the RNC. That was the last night. So the RNC was this year probably the best RNC ever. Next story. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've obviously heard about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. This happened July 13th, if you don't know about it. Since then, there have been a lot of revelations. These revelations have been regarding the shooter, and a lot of revelations regarding Secret Service. On July 20th, Saturday morning, I found out through, I think, Newsmax that Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas had been subpoenaed regarding the Trump assassination. I don't know what had happened there. I haven't seen any public questioning of Mayorkas, but as soon as I find out, I will be sure to let you guys know. I'm honestly really curious as to what's going to happen next. Tuesday, July 23rd, Kimberly Cheadle went ahead and resigned from her position. Personally, I think she should have been fired for her ineptitude. She should not receive any benefits after what happened with the attempted assassination, because she is a complete inept director of director of Secret Service. I mean, Trump wasn't her only failure as director of Secret Service. If you want to do your own research, you can, but I'm telling you now, Trump was not her only failure as director of Secret Service. Moving on. Sunday morning, July 21st, obviously, if you haven't been paying attention, Joe Biden dropped out of the race, and he gave his full endorsement to Kamala Harris. A growing number of Democrats had been pressuring Joe to step down after his big letdown at the debate. But if you hadn't been watching over the last couple of years, Joe Biden has been showing a great, well, I don't know how to word this. Joe Biden has been showing, obviously, signs of dementia. If you have any cognitive ability to see this, Joe Biden is not qualified to run for president. If he's not qualified to run for president, how is he qualified to stand as president? And the real question here is, if he is not qualified to run for president, how does he have the cognitive ability to still run this country? My question is, should we make it a law that anybody over certain age, whether they be in Senate, Congress, or some kind of representative, anybody in politics over, let's say, 55, should have yearly cognitive tests? I honestly feel like we're running a geriatric ward in Congress and Senate. It's like a retirement home. We've got people, 84-year-olds. I mean, Nancy Pelosi's 84. Joe Biden's 82. Mitch McConnell's 82. Dianne Feinstein died at 90. She was still sitting in her seat. We're running a geriatric ward. Or should I say the geriatric ward's running the country. Right? But let's just move on here. I'm gonna go ahead and move. I got a good one right here. All right, so let's get started with this. All right. Yeah. So keep it on with that. I'm gonna hit you with some numbers, make you think. Joe Biden is 82. Now, he spent roughly 35 or more years in Senate. Turned around and spent 8 years as Obama's VP, and another 4 as president. Mitch McConnell is 82 years old. His political career started around 1974. That's a long time to be in Congress. All right. Dianne Feinstein, as I just mentioned, she was 90 when she passed away. She was still sitting on her seat when she passed away. Her political career started around 1970. Y'all gonna love this one. Nancy Pelosi, 84 years old. Political career started around 1976. Now, this is just a couple of people. This is just a couple of people that are in Senate, Congress, whatever. You see these ages that I'm pulling up. These are just a couple, to name a few. We should have age limits, I think. I mean, 'cause in the real world where you work for a living, you're not allowed to work some of these jobs at these ages. You know, they want you to retire in the 60s and 70s mark. So why are you allowed to continue running this country at 80 and 90 years old? I find that age does not always translate to wisdom. And sometimes you're just too damn old to be a politician. Sometimes it's time to pass the mantle down to a younger generation. I'm not the biggest fan of Hakeem Jeffries. You know, not because he's a far left progressive liberal, but you know, some of the stuff he says aggravates me. But he is a younger politician, and some of his policies are decent policies. He is smart. But some of these younger politicians are brilliant. I mean, we have great Republican politicians that are younger, and they're fantastic. They're brilliant, like J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, and one of my favorite senators from Alabama, Katie Britt. She is phenomenal. She's brilliant. I say, you know, age does not always translate to wisdom, but neither does education. A few weeks ago, we sat down with Mayor Barnes from Bayou La Battery, and amongst the topics we discussed the seafood industry recently with Mayor Barnes. And recently, Mayor Barnes has been in the news again talking about that very same subject. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that the citizens that live in Bayou La Battery either work in the shipyards, or they work in the seafood industry. Now, last August, the city of Bayou La Battery issued a disaster declaration calling on Congress to help. Mayor Barnes, hold on, what? The response from Mayor Barnes, Mayor Barnes said the response has been slow. He said, we hadn't heard anything from Congress about that. We are getting more help from local legislators Chip Brown and David Sessions. Now, when we sat down and talked with Mayor Barnes about this, he had mentioned that there's a lot of foreign dumping seafood in the bayou, and it's making it hard for the local fishermen to make any money off of their seafood that's local. So if I'm going to reach out to Mayor Barnes and see if I can sit down with him again and maybe talk to him a little bit more about this situation and get a little bit more information from him directly about this. I had a great time talking to him the last time. He was very informative. From what I've seen, he's been a great mayor for the city of the Bayou, and I would love to sit down with him again and discuss this in a little bit more detail. Maybe talk to him about the local legislators Chip Brown and David Sessions and see how they're helping, and talk to him and see if maybe Kay Ivey has reached out to help also. So I'm going to reach out to Mayor Barnes and let you guys know if I've spoke with him about that. We'll get back to you guys as soon as possible about that. So before I close today's session out, I want to bring up one more thing. I want to discuss with you guys. We enjoy what we call the freedom of the Second Amendment. Now, I'm going to read this to you directly how it says in the Bill of Rights. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let me give that to you one more again. Shall not be infringed. Now, we have a lot of Democrats that are wanting to regulate our firearms. They want to take firearms from us. Let me give you a story that happened in the UK just on Monday. In the UK, let me backpedal a little bit. In the UK, they have banned firearms all across the UK. Now they have what's called mass stabbings. Just this past Monday, two children were killed and 9 others were wounded by one person in a mass stabbing. All right? Getting rid of guns does not stop the criminal. Prisons are full of criminals. What do they do in prison? They make their own knives and they kill each other with them. Right? Am I wrong? I mean, you cannot stop a criminal by taking his guns away. Criminals are going to find a way to kill each other. Criminals are going to find a way to kill you. Criminals are going to try to find a way to kill your children. Taking guns away are not going to stop that. Stop infringing on my Second Amendment right. It's not going to stop the criminal. Try regulating the criminals instead of regulating my guns. So, on that note, I want to thank you all for choosing Mobile GOP Talk. I want to remind you guys that voting is very important. I want you guys to get out and vote in local state elections. Vote on the mayor that you think is best for your town. Vote on the governor you think is best for your state. And definitely vote on the president you think is best representing you. My name is Donald. This has been Mobile GOP Talk. Learn your Bill of Rights. Thank you.